Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Destina. This is Spiritually Bougie Astrology, and we're going to be taking a look at this new moon in Taurus. This is only like my 10th time to try to record this. I'm a little salty right now, but I'm going to try to power through. So sorry, guys. Like, it's been the craziest week. I literally, almost every day this week, I don't even have the chance to get out of bed. I don't even have the chance to get coffee, go to the bathroom, anything. It's like I sit up and my phone is just going bing, 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 bing. I'm not complaining. I'm not. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for it, just to be clear. However, it's still astounding to me. It's super astounding because I'm not used to it, to the extent that everything has been going as of late. Anyways, this new moon in Taurus should be an eclipse, but isn't an eclipse, just to be clear. But it does have inklings that tie back to a previous eclipse. Now, I would like to show you that eclipse, but one of the reasons that I have recorded this so many times is because I tried to show it on a previous recording, and then none of the charts wanted to come through the software. Dusty is not a software person. Dusty is a builder. Dusty's an astrologer. You give me charts, I'm going to read them all day long. You give me some tools and some lumber, I will build for you all day long. You give me software, this is a whole different language. I don't do well with it. So bear with me in that regard. Oh, so, and literally 18 months ago, this new moon is on May 19th of 2023. So I'm talking November 19th of 2021. 18 months ago, there was a full moon eclipse, an out of sign eclipse that occurred in the sign of Taurus. Now, that one is specific because some of the triggers, some of the planets involved, some of the other transits involved, those same players are tied to this one. So we're not going to include the sun and the moon, but I am going to at least show it. But the way I'm going to show it is actually to take this back. Let me show the screen. I originally had a plan on doing a side-by-side where we had the dual wheels, but that didn't happen. So you're going to see me back this up all the way to November 19th. Okay. So November 19th, 2021, this is the day of the out of sign eclipse. We had the nodes at 1 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini. Here's the sun at 27 degrees. Here is the moon at 27 degrees. This full moon was squaring Jupiter. We had Mars right here in an opposition to Uranus. 2 more players. So we have Jupiter, Mars, Uranus. Then we have Venus right here. Venus ruled this eclipse. Venus was in a trine to Uranus, and Venus entered shadow right here. Venus entered shadow during her retrograde. Most of December, she made a long-term conjunction back and forth with Pluto, went all the way back to this 11 to 12 degree mark, and then conjoined Mars, and Mars and Venus spent 6 weeks together, finishing the trek through Capricorn, going into Aquarius, and they didn't separate until right around this 24 degree mark, whenever Saturn had made it all the way here. It was right around here. Saturn had a conjunction with Venus. Venus passed Saturn, and it was like the girl that came home had to face her parent, and what did the parents say? In the house, you go inside, you, boy, mirror. Shotgun in hand, old school country style, like, what are you doing, my daughter? That's what that energy felt like. But that was last spring, that the conjunctions between Venus, Mars, and Pluto happened, and then Venus, Saturn, and Mars happened. Now, what ignited for you in November of 2021? So this went in roughly a week before Thanksgiving, before the holidays set in, before all that newness set in. We had a glimpse, a glimmer, an idea of where the energies were starting to take us. We got let go from a job. We got out of a relationship. We tried to take further steps in a relationship, and those didn't have the chance to progress because somebody wasn't ready. Somebody hadn't fully taken the time to do the work. For some people, this had to do with money, and they had to start, looking for new investors and new places to get money. This was an inkling, an idea that occurred to bring us into, to give us an idea as to where the energy was going to take us once the nodes changed signs and once we started that 18-month cycle. Now, that 18-month cycle started in January of 2022, and it ends in July of 2023. Babies, it's May. We're wrapping up an 18-month cycle these next few months. But the preview of that cycle came 18 months before this new moon. And this new moon is within 1 degree of where this out of sign eclipse occurs. So again, November 19th, 2021, think back, go back and look at your old text messages, go through your iMessage. I like photos. I go back and I look at my photos. That tells me more than anything, but being in real estate and home building and all that for that many years, like I could see so many things through photos that other people, they're just going to see like a room. And I'm like, oh, no. This ain't done. This ain't done. This ain't done. So I like photos as an example, especially if you took a lot of photos during those times. Once you see the photos, like you will have a whole rush of your memories coming through going, oh yeah, I do remember November of 2021. How odd. That's strange. Yeah, you're supposed to start to remember that. Okay. Moving this along, let's bring this back forward, and I'm going to bump this up a few hours. We're going to take this to the new moon that's going to occur. Now, that new moon is going to perfect in the morning, roughly between 10:30 and 11 a.m. because this is just after it perfects. But here's the new moon in Taurus. There's a couple other little training that's going on. One, Mercury and Saturn are wrapping up their sextile. This is the third sextile between Mercury and Saturn. Mercury entered shadow in a sextile to Saturn. Mercury ended its retrograde just after a sextile to Saturn. This is the third and final sextile. So in some ways, we're going to bring things together that started before the Mercury retrograde. That goes all the way back to late March and the first 10 days of April, because that's when the first one occurred. Here's that energy. Now, on Tuesday, a few days ago, but a few days before the 19th, so on the 16th, Jupiter entered Taurus, and this square to Pluto. Now, the thing is, I don't think many people really felt Jupiter go into Taurus because that initial energy, that initial square from Pluto's retrograde. They're in two different directions. It's like a cartoon. Which way did he go, George? Which way did he go? That way. Both of them. That way, all the way around, different directions. So we might have felt when the moon made a conjunction to Jupiter, but most people didn't really notice the difference once Jupiter went into Taurus. Some people might have just felt a little bit more secure about a decision. They didn't necessarily feel like it's crazy. The first real test and energy that Jupiter is going to send us is going to come through Mars. What's going to occur following this new moon? Mars, who's in a sextile to this new moon, is going to go into Leo. It's going to enter a square from Jupiter and an opposition to Mars. Jupiter will be supporting Mars in whatever needs to be finished up, whatever needs to be closed out, whatever fear we need to get over, whatever things that have been coming through for us since those late parts of March when Pluto entered this area of the sky, we need to squash it. We need to complete it. We need to get over it. We need to deal with something. And this new moon feels like a commitment. New moon, new beginning, new commitments to finish something that is still just kind of not clear. For some people, it's an imaginary thing. And I don't mean this in the sense of like delusion. I mean like we are literally creating the footprint as we go. So it's literally coming from up here. It's coming and being birthed through our imagination and through our brain immediately. For some people, this new commitment with a sextile from Neptune is because it's a lie. Neptune, just as much as it can be imagination and spirituality and creativity, it can be substance. It can be deception. It can be cloudiness. It can be something we weren't expecting. Depending on where this falls in your chart, there can be deception. And this deception, this diluted way of looking at things, is impacting an upcoming action, an upcoming situation, an occurrence that hasn't happened yet, but it will right after Mars hits that square to Jupiter. If you guys have been paying attention, I have said multiple times, like some of these transits, they're hitting Jupiter and Neptune at the same time. Jupiter gives more tangibility than Neptune does. Neptune dissolves a lot. But whenever you're adding both of their energies so close together in these transits, this tells me that one area that is just a part of the delusion or just part of the imagination or is not easily recognizable becomes tangible very, very quickly once Jupiter enters the game. Now, Jupiter is in Taurus. Jupiter itself, it is a planet of wealth. It's a planet of abundance, prosperity, our hopes and dreams for the future, our faith, the way that we connect to God or spirit or creator, whatever you want to call the imaginary man in the sky. Jupiter's our connection to that. And Jupiter has gone into the fixed earth sign. The idea is stability. Jupiter is meant to stabilize this area. However, to get the stability here, we need another act of chaos, disruption, shaking some things up. Mars in Cancer, builder energy. You guys heard me say this before. That first timeline, so the first 2.5 weeks of Mars in Cancer, I said it so many times, like we're building towards something that needs nurturing. We're putting force and effort into an area that revolves nurturing. So I kept referring to building because that's the one thing that makes sense to me. If you want to nurture something, you have to build something to keep it safe. But after Mars got deeper into those transits of Cancer, we started to deal with emotions. And those emotions and all of that outlet towards emotions, they were stirred up right before that out of sign eclipse that occurred on April 19th. They occurred whenever Mars was in Cancer and the moon hit that conjunction to Saturn and to Neptune while going through Pisces. We had emotional awakenings. We're finalizing certain deep emotions that have been shaken up. We are wrapping up the emotional shakeup, and with Venus closely behind, she's kind of putting a fix. She's acting like a band-aid. She's helping people get over recent situations, and she will continue to do that all the way into her retrograde. Now, she isn't fully caught up with Mars yet. We haven't got all the fixes, and there are going to be some additional fixes that are going to continue after this new moon. This new moon, though, still comes with a very specific act, a monumental act, some type of fed energy that just changes our momentum, it changes our drive, it changes our ambitions, and it changes the way we've been dealing with situations. So many of us are tired of dealing with the emotional roller coaster that has occurred, and we need real roller coaster. We need excitement. We need different kind of activities, not the stuff that plays with our emotions and plays with our mental health. No, we're all sick of that. We're sick of eclipse season. We're sick of what that Mercury retrograde did, and we are sick of Mars and Cancer. For us to get out of the emotional funk that has come through, the loop that our mind has been on in regards to fear or recent events or recent traumas or recent abuse, for us to continue this process of taking back our power, we need Mars to go into Leo and oppose Pluto. For some people, this is going to be very pivotal acts and pivotal action and pivotal motion forward to energies that started 18 months ago with that out of sign eclipse that occurred in Taurus on November 19th of 2021, the one I just showed you. This new moon is within 1 degree of where that eclipse was. It's in a whole new area of the sky. It's in a new point where we haven't had any type of like lunar cycles really. So this feeds into, we need to make commitments. We need to start something up. We need to start wrapping something up in this energy. And if you listen to that week ahead forecast, I said it then, I'm bringing it up again. So much of these next 2 weeks, so the week that we're in right now, next week, the week following this new moon, is wrapping something up to start something new, ending one project to go to the next, finish one room to go pack the next. For some of us, it's packing. For some of us, it's unpacking. For some of us, it's making a decision because we're tired of shopping. We're tired of running around. We're tired of trying to jump through all the hoops, and we are looking at new opportunities and new happenings. It all kind of comes down to where it's at in your individual chart and what is being activated for you in these transits. Now, I'm going to back this up to Aries so I can actually do this based off of ascendant, and I'm going to cover Mars, Pluto, Jupiter, and the new moon because, again, Jupiter didn't come in with a bang. Jupiter came in nice and quiet like a frickin' mouse. That's not right. That's not normal. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, has been quiet. Why? Because Jupiter didn't want anyone to realize he was there yet. It's like he was testing the waters for a lot of people. Testing the waters, testing the opportunities, getting an idea. He did the pinky toe dip thing like Pluto did, except for Jupiter will not retrograde out of Taurus. Jupiter is going to be in Taurus for the next year, literally until like May 26th of next year, I think it is. I think it's the 26th. Anywhere between the 25th and the end of the month, but I'm pretty sure it's the 26th of next year. So, all right, my loves, we are looking at Aries and Aries rising. This is a new moon in your second house of money, your stuff, your assets. Jupiter has just left your first house. And since December of last year, whenever Jupiter had got done with its temporary retrograde back into Pisces and came back here, Jupiter's been full steam ahead. And Jupiter's been helping you line some things out, specifically lining out your plans for the future, for your career, so you can start to reach new people differently, so you can start to reach certain friends differently, so you can reach certain clientele differently, so you can start networking differently. So much for Aries risings has been about giving a boost to your ego and giving a boost to how you're going to progress. Now, for some of you, there's going to be some long-term consequences to these initial decisions, and I am not hiding that from you. but those consequences are tests that are going to come later on. In the meantime, we're looking at Jupiter now in your second house of money. You've either recently had like new assets come around, you've had a bit of a windfall, maybe you've won something, or you have finally gotten like the right kind of job, or you're starting to feel like your money issues are lining themselves out, and that is wonderful. That is great. Keep doing the work so that way when we have some of the tests, like what Mars is going to do whenever it squares Jupiter, then the tests aren't going to be nearly as damaging or nearly as stressful. Now, Mars going into your fifth house, opposing Pluto and squaring Jupiter, in the most mundane sense, you can be having to spend money for a kid's birthday party, but it's not even your kid. It's like their friend. Well, we have to buy Johnny a gift. I have to go with a gift. I don't want to buy Johnny a gift. I don't like Johnny. I don't like Johnny's dad. Fine. Let's go to frickin' Walgreens. We'll buy something at the Walgreens. By the way, if you ever have to buy gifts, like you can actually usually get like really good gift deals at Walgreens. I'm going to own that one because I've done that before for like toy runs and stuff like that. Somebody's just scolding for that, I'm sure, but this is like in the immediate, the most mundane. Yes, spending money to have some fun, spending money to go out and hang with friends. But the energy of Pluto is like either we're trying to spend some money to cheer a friend up, we're spending money on a kid's party for your own kid because they're demanding that we get something for Johnny, or we're looking at how we can invest certain aspects and take more control of our luck and our happiness. Most people, Mars changing signs, Mars can be a very disruptive energy, but Mars is your chart ruler. It's not having to be disruptive. Your chart ruler is going into your fifth house of love, luck, romance, happiness, joy, and children, after having just spent 6 weeks in your fourth house of home, home life, and family. The other way that this can play out is you might have been recently making the decision that for you to continue to make money, you have to move closer to your job. Maybe you're moving from one state to another. Maybe you've recently had a transfer opportunity come through. Not a long distance transfer, but a short distance one. Literally moving across the state. That's not very far. But what do you do whenever you make the decision to sell a house? Mars in the fourth. You have to tell your kids. Mars in the fifth. If some of you Aries risings are suddenly having to move, and that means disrupting your household and disrupting your family and shifting the kids from one school district to the next, your kids are going to be so mad at you. Get over it. They'll get over it, I promise you. Just let them be mad. They will get glad in the same pants they got mad in. I promise you that. Let them be mad. But all my friends are here. You will make new friends. I don't want new friends. Oh, well. I had to do this so many times when I was a kid, so I'm kind of numb to it now. But if you have young kids and they've never moved before, they've never had any type of disruption before, they're not going to do well with it. They'll get really frustrated with it. So just understand that some of the necessary energy, the necessary disruption to transition from one area to another, it is very necessary. Not everybody is going to agree and not everybody is going to like it. For some people, they're going to feel like you're doing something very, very suddenly, but really you're not. And that is really emphasized by the sextile between Mercury and Saturn, because many of you are getting advice from an elder. You're getting knowledge from somebody else. You're getting financial advice from somebody, but you're getting some type of advice telling you to make these decisions, knowing that it's going to be a temporary disruption that's going to lead to long-term financial gains with Jupiter in your second house. So, pivotal disruption is a necessary disruption. For most of my Aries risings, the days following this new moon is going to be pivotal, necessary disruption. If it's chaos, it's probably involving the kids. It happens. Okay. For Taurus and Taurus rising, this is a new moon in your first house. It's you, your identity, your ego. Jupiter is just now in your first house. And little by little, as the days progress, Jupiter's energy here is going to start to restore certain parts of you. When Jupiter went through your 12th, you had unexpected losses. Hidden losses, secrets coming to the surface because Jupiter rules your 8th house. And now, as Jupiter's in your first, more and more things that were going on behind your back are going to start showing up in front of you. You're going to see the results in many ways. But you're not going to see them automatically. You're not going to see them all immediately, but you are going to be making a decision to make a change, to do something new. This is a new moon in your first house. This new moon in your first house is going to help you overcome recent fears, recent things that have been brought to the surface, recent disruptions, recent power struggles. Pluto is in your 10th house. If part of the eclipse axis has been you dealing with leaving a past relationship or leaving somebody behind, that somebody has triggered fair amounts of fear with Pluto in your 10th. To get over the fear of how things are going to go for the future, get over the fear of where you're at in your career or in your public image, we need some kind of support. And for many of you, that support is actually going to come through family. Mars is going to go into your 4th house: home, home life, family, roots, ancestry, mothers, motherhood. Now, I want to be real honest with some Taurus risings right now. Y'all are going to have a huge shakeup whenever it comes to family and your home life over these next 5 to 6 months. That Venus retrograde is going to upgrade this area of your life, but this upgrade has a disruption that comes first. If you've recently sold one house and you're moving into another, or if you've already bought the new house and you haven't sold the other, then Mars going into the 4th is disrupting one area connected to home life. And then later on, Venus coming in is going to change the new home life. It's going to change the new area. For some people, it's just going to be as simple as we're moving from one apartment to our first house. We are moving from one place to another. And yes, there was disruption and chaos involved, but it's going to have promise in the long term. Venus's retrograde here is going to have a lot of promise, especially since this is your chart ruler. In that area, 4th house of home, home life, and family. Some of you are starting families for the first time, and you're super nervous about it. You're moving into your first home. You're moving into that new place to have that new beginning and those new sets of memories, and not everybody's on board with it. Or if they are on board with it, you're still questioning everything because you're fearful. And after things settle in and after things progress, you're going to realize those fears weren't necessary. And little by little, more things will start to work out well for you. More things will start to make sense. There will be more things that will be overcome and regulated in a lot of different ways. The first energy of Mars going into the 4th, though, is going to be disruptive. Whether it's chaotic or pivotal, depends on your own chart. For some people, this is going to be disruptions literally with a physical person in your family. For others, this is literally going to be just what I just said, like an offer on a house so you can move into the next one. A situation regarding a house so that way you can move away from it. This can be members of your family fighting. Now, for Taurus risings, we can always look at what these individual houses can mean in regards to family members, and there can be issues with your mother. There can be issues with your maternal grandfather. There can be issues between mother and father with Mars opposite Pluto, because Pluto's in the 10th. Whenever it comes to the 10th house, fathers are tied to that. So you can see families fighting. You can see families at odd with your decision, Jupiter now in your first and the new moon in your first. But understand that everyone has an opinion, but if they're not paying your bills, they don't get an opinion. They don't get a vote. They can complain and bitch all they want to, but it ain't their life. It's yours. Remember that part. Not everybody's going to be on board with the decisions that you make. If you're leaving somebody behind, if you're moving, understand that. If we are having family members at odds with the situation, just expect it. This is the necessary next cut, adjustment in this area of life, so that way the new setup for roots and ancestry can come through over the summer, for you to place new roots in this area. Okay. For Gemini and Gemini risings, okay. I really feel like this depends on which twin I'm talking to with Gemini risings. And I'm not making fun of you, because I'm a Gemini Sun, Mercury, and Chiron. I am a Gemini. So let me be real clear with you, Gemini risings. Some of you are still dealing with the consequences of your actions, because that Mars retrograde in your first house brought out every shadow side of certain Geminis. And none of y'all could tell the truth. None of y'all could keep your story straight. And sooner or later, those lies caught up with you. And most of them, they caught up with you during the Mercury retrograde. Why? Because Mercury and Venus were in mutual reception. Your chart ruler was having a retrograde in your 12th house, and y'all got caught. You got caught with the things coming out of your mouth. That's one twin. The other twin, you've been dealing with the eclipse axis going through your 12th and your 6th, and the more and more things that went through your 12th last year, the more reserved you became, the more you tried to take a step back, and you had no idea on how to handle certain things, because it felt like you were just in uncharted territory. It felt like you were in a foreign land, a foreign place, some place that you didn't even have a choice in being in. It's just like it was handed to you, like, oh, I'm sorry, everything went bad in this area of your life. You can stay here in my cabin in the woods, 90 miles from civilization. That doesn't sound creepy at all, but some of you all ended up in that kind of situation. You ended up going through the motions over and over again of fighting with people from the past, or you've been having certain things triggered from your past that have been coming up more and more and more. And as those triggers happened, you became more reserved and you took some steps back. The new moon with Jupiter now in your 12th is meant to start to restore parts of your faith. The new moon with Jupiter in your 12th, for some of you other twins, is meant to allow for you to start making very pivotal decisions to rectify the situations that you created last year and earlier this spring when Mars was in Gemini. It really comes down to the twin. Now, I will say, when it comes to Gemini risings, especially after Mars goes into Leo, so on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, more than any other date, no distracted driving, Geminis. None. Do not. Hear me loud and clear. No distracted driving during those days. Because Mars is going to be in your 3rd house of short distance travel, opposing Pluto. Some of you are going to make very I don't want to say unnecessary, uncanny, unexpected decisions that are going to play out with Jupiter square to Mars. And for some people, that's going to be like making a decision to travel a long distance. Some of you are going to be making a decision to deal with somebody that can either be a teacher or a guru or an educator. Some of you are not ready to accept responsibility, Saturn in your 10th, for the decisions you've made. Some of you feel like you need to get even, Mercury sextile Saturn. You haven't listened, you haven't been paying attention to the lessons, and certain decisions are going to follow based off of that. I hope not too many of you are going to go with the shadow side of things. I hope many of you are going to learn whatever lessons are necessary and accept responsibility for the areas that you have impacted. But others are going to find themselves making decisions in a place that they never thought that they would ever be in. They're going to be making decisions about situations that they never anticipated being in because they didn't put themselves in the situation. Some of you did, many of you didn't. And again, it really comes down to where you're at in your own chart and with your own personal karma. Some of you are going to be making a decision this weekend. Some of you are going to be forced to make a decision on something this weekend. And I want you to know that that initial decision that you might be pushed into making is probably not going to be the right one. Mars going into the third, opposing Pluto. This is why I use the word forced. Some of you are going to feel like you're being peer pressured or relationship pressured, but forced to make a decision. And for Geminis, the reason I'm saying relationship is this is Jupiter. Jupiter rules your 7th house of marriage and partnerships. This can also be a boss. Jupiter rules your 10th house of career and public image. I need you to make a decision on this transfer today. I need you to make a decision on whether you want this promotion today. I need you to make a decision on whether you're staying here or you're packing your stuff and moving back in with your mama. Like, these are the levels of decisions I'm talking about. It's almost like you're being forced to make certain decisions. Many of you are going to feel that. If you are, understand that even if you make a temporary decision to agree to something or just to shut somebody else up, you will have time. In about a month, you'll see just how detrimental that decision was, and you'll see the solution come once Venus enters this energy. So be prepared for these moments in time and understand that immediately following the new moon, again, the new moon is on the 19th, immediately following the new moon, there's going to be a set of decisions that for many of you, you're going to be making based off of a loss or based off of something from the past coming back up, something that needs to be rectified. Others are going to feel like somebody is forcing you to do something that you've never done before or doing something that you don't want to do, and you might temporarily agree, but it is temporary. It's not going to stick. The decisions made with Mars is meant to make space, not necessarily commit. If you were in a Mars perfection year, maybe it is commitment. But if you're in a Saturn perfection year, it's not. Be aware of that. Understand that temporary things are going to pop up that are going to probably need you to play ball in some ways so that way you can get through to what can occur afterwards. Okay. For Cancer and for Cancer rising, I love you. I do. I love you guys. However, y'all been really bitchy. Mars is going to leave your first house. That is going to be good. Many of you have had to just deal with the beat ups and over. You just had a Mars retrograde in your 12th house. You've had so many things from the past and things that are just suddenly starting to come full circle and come to fruition in front of you in ways that you were not expecting. And Mars has made you irritable. Mars has made you more driven and wanting to get certain things done. But Mars is going to leave your first house and go into your second, and most likely you, because Mars is leaving your first, are going to make some interesting financial decisions in the days following this new moon. Now, this is a new moon in your 11th house. Friends, network, colleagues, people that you do networking with, people that you donate your time with or towards, so humanitarianism like things. Your clients are going to be a part of the 11th house. Your friends are a part of the 11th house. This is a social house, and Jupiter is here. For many of you, Mars going into your second house of money is finally paying off a debt to a friend. Jupiter in your 11th, Mars in your 2nd, Pluto is in your 8th. Some of you are going to have a deal or a transaction or an opportunity that comes from a friend that has the ability to impact your finances in a very pivotal way and allow for you to finally get over fears tied to debt or taxes, tied to some other financial area. More financial independence is on the way for Cancer risings. You've had so many things come through. Jupiter has been making very pivotal changes in your direction and career. And as your career has gotten into this shape that you've wanted it into, now Jupiter's changed signs and said, okay, we did all of this work in our career area. Now it must be applied. Applied to who? Your friends, the people you do business with, your team, your clients, the network. Most of us are not solitary units. I'm a solitary unit. Me. I am talking to myself into a camera. Y'all see this afterwards. Nobody's in this room. Sometimes the dogs are in here, but not right now. But even I am not solitary because this, once I'm done, gets uploaded. It goes to YouTube. People view it. People can comment on it. People can message me. They can talk to me about this thing. Once I do a certain amount of individual work, it then goes to the next level. It goes to more people. You have done the individual work. Now it is time to see how that individual work and those things that you are lining out, the training that you've done, the education that you've put into not effort, into play, just say, I'll say it. The things that you've done and putting them into motion and putting them into play, they're not just meant for you. They're also meant for other people. So you're either going to be debuting certain things to clients, you're going to be launching certain things, or you're going to start collecting people. Gaining more clients, this can also mean spending money to make money. So Mars can mean buying leads, depending on your actual business and what you're doing. For some of you, it's going to be like, I know I'm going to be moving in 6 to 8 months and I'm going to start downsizing some of my stuff. Mars is going into your 2nd house of money and assets. So who do you talk to first? You talk to your friends. Hey, I know you're getting a new place. Like, what furniture do you need? I'm going to be getting rid of some of my stuff because I'm moving across the country. What? Yeah, I'm moving. I am gone. It's coming in like 6 months. So that means I'm going to like slowly start downsizing. Come on over. Come pick something out. Come go through some of this. And for some of you, you're literally going to be giving stuff away. You're going to be giving certain assets to your friends. You're going to be shaving off certain assets. You're going to be spending money to make money. But a lot of this is about financial and commitments and your connections with groups of people, your clients, your friends, the people you do business with, the people that you like to work with. A new coworker can come through, or a friend can come through telling you of a new financial opportunity. But who you know is so important right now, Cancer risings, because they can benefit you huge whenever it comes to your finances. Okay. Excuse me. All right. Here is the ascendant now in Leo. Leo and Leo risings, this is a new moon in your 10th house of career and public image and your hopes and dreams for the future and where you're wanting to go in the future. You have had some type of adjustment in your commitments. You have been dealing with either a business partner or a family member or some type of commitment that has been a huge area of fear, a huge area of frustration, as Pluto has been in your 7th house. And we're about to change the view of this and change the landscape tied to this. Jupiter going into your 10th is telling you that certain aspects in regards to your career and your public image, things that you want control over, things that you want to be able to handle, you're going to get them in a very certain way. And you're going to know that once Mars goes into your 1st. Mars going into your first is going to completely change your energy. For the next 6 weeks, you're going to be much more motivated, much more determined, much more capable of getting things done. The frustrations that you have been dealing with by letting go of the past and letting go of old ways of doing things, those are going to pivot. And as opposed to being frustrated on waiting on everybody else to make a decision, on waiting on a verdict, on waiting on a court system, on waiting on whatever it is somebody else has been doing, trying to get through training, whatever you've been waiting on getting through, you're getting through it now. Mars is going to go into your first. It's going to completely change your drive and your motivation and your ambitions. And the first thing you're going to do is deal with this guy right here. Whatever, whoever, however Pluto is showing up in your life, for some people, it is an individual. It is somebody that you've worked with. It is somebody that you've made commitments with. It is a roommate. And we are tired of your crap. In this regard, Pluto's your roommate. We're tired of Pluto's crap and he needs to move. And for some of you, you're going to go through an eviction process. And that means literally evicting a roommate. For some of you, this is going to be dealing with a partner, romantic partner or business partner or both. Some of you are going to have to start to separate something. If you're going through a divorce and you were doing business with your spouse, now you're not just doing a divorce, but now you're separating out your company. This is not an easy thing to do, but Saturn in your 8th house tells me that there's going to be a lot of financial adjustments in the shared asset category. Some of you are losing marriages. Some of you are losing your home. Some of you are having shifts in your family, and some of you are going through huge rippling levels of splits. However, over the course of the summer, Venus is going to come into your first house and completely give you a makeover. And Venus's makeover is going to include Jupiter and Uranus's energy. So whatever you're getting through in the moment is very temporary. And the way things will start to line out once we get into July will be pivotally different moving forward. Okay. For Virgo and for Virgo risings, this is a new moon in your 9th house. Education, higher institutions, higher learning, your higher calling, the way that you connect to God and the universe, creator, whatever you call the little man in the sky, it is completely up to you, or little woman. It's completely up to you. Whatever you call them, this is a new connection to that. And the way that for many of you, this new connection is coming through is based off of a new guru, a new teacher, somebody that you respect. Their experience level is different than yours. The way that they interact with certain knowledges and the way they explain things to you, they're truly like a teacher. And you're going to have new experiences and new levels of support for many of you on an educational level, for many more of you on a spiritual level in the months ahead. You need the spiritual support of Jupiter in your 9th to deal with what comes whenever everything goes through your 12th. Now, on the 20th, Mars goes into your 12th. Mars is going to oppose Pluto in your 6th house of health. There is going to be a moment of either chaos or pivotal disruption regarding health, routine, regarding your work, regarding some area of how you care for yourself and how you care for other people. There's a shift in your mindset that's going to be coming over these next few months, but for you to fully get that shift in your mindset going, we're going to have to do some processes of elimination. Now, let's look at what Mars rules in your chart. Mars rules your 8th house of debt, death, taxes, inheritance, secrets, the occult. There can be secrets that really take a hold of the next 6 weeks. There can be certain conversations, certain communications, certain ways of branding yourself that also take hold over the next 6 weeks. And basically, it's going to be like many of you are going to try to do certain things the same way that you've always done them, and Mars is quickly going to show you this ain't right. It ain't right. It ain't working. We ain't doing it right. Something's got to change. When Venus comes into the mix, that'll be the change. But we have some initial disruptions that need to occur first. Now, some of you are literally going to be looking at things that you own, and you're going to start to sell them. Many of you are going to look at the idea of traveling somewhere you've never been before, because Jupiter is in your 9th and Mars will be in your 12th. Some of you are even going to feel like you're being forced to travel somewhere or called to travel somewhere unexpectedly based off of the way these transits are laying out. You're going somewhere to help somebody. You're going somewhere from the past. You're going somewhere completely new to you. The longer we have 12th house transits, and for the majority of the next 5 months, Virgo risings, you are going to have 12th house transits. In previous episodes, I've very clearly stated, many of you are getting very close to a dark night of the soul. You're going to have 5 months of 12th house transits. Many of you are going to have a dark night of the soul. Virgo risings and Pisces risings, like y'all are really getting close to those dark nights. Pisces risings, I feel like are already in it. But Virgo risings, like y'all are going to start to feel the switch. You're going to feel that we need to reduce certain things, let certain things go, pay off certain debts, Mars in the topical layer of the 8th house. But some of you are also going to be dealing with, secrets, either the secret of a friend or the secret of a loved one. You're going to be having secret communications that aren't easily explainable, that after Mars goes into your 1st, like you're going to have to deal with them firsthand. So don't do sneaky shit. But you can also start to feel exhausted and tired. Mars hitting this opposition to Pluto can confirm something you're starting to feel in your body, something that you're feeling in your health. Many of you will start to feel specific things in regards to like your intestines or something on your physical structure, so more along the lines of your lower legs. So something in your legs can start to affect you, but the thing is it's not the legs, it's some other area that you're not understanding and you're not easily seeing. But it's going to start to come through. But also be aware of migraines, because Mars rules the head and Mars is going to be in your 12th house. You can be more clumsy when Mars is in your 12th and in your 1st, but you are more likely than anything to get sick or feel like you're getting run down or have certain things that start to go on, like that's a secret or behind your back. This can also, in the long term, result in, I hate to say affairs. I don't necessarily feel like that's going to be the case with a lot of Virgo risings, but I can't completely ex-nay it anyways because of some of the energies that are going to follow. So just be aware of that. Oh, you have new supports coming through. You have people that are on your side that are meant to help you. You just got to get through the next few months. No rushing into new relationships for Virgo risings, that's for sure. Okay. For Libra and Libra risings, this is a new moon in your 8th house. Now, if you've listened to previous episodes, I kept saying with Libra risings that literally since that full moon in Libra that occurred at the beginning of April, y'all have been waiting on everybody else. You've been waiting on Jupiter to wrap up in your 7th house. You've been trying to wrap up some legal matters. You've been trying to separate out your assets. You've been trying to pay off some debts. You've been playing with the crypto market. You've had some things going on at work. Some of you have had some like real recognition because Mars in your 10th can allow for recognition, but others have been dealing with disruption because Mars, first and foremost, is disruption. So some of you have been dealing with disruptions in regards to career, disruptions in certain commitments with other people and not getting things to work out quite the way that you were anticipating. However, now that your chart ruler, Venus, is in your 10th house of career, and Venus is also the ruler of this new moon which should be an eclipse but isn't, many of my Libra risings are finally going to be able to start doing something or handling something or putting something together tied to investments, tied to a payout, tied to some type of like court ruling, some type of like commitment ending, and there was a reward tied to it. Some of you are literally going to have like your partners are going to have like an adjustment in their job and in their career, and it's going to start to pay out for you. So like they have just had a promotion and now it's time to start seeing like the bigger paychecks come through. There's a lot of things that can be very, very beneficial for Libra risings with this new moon and even the energy that's going to follow. Now, this new moon is going to be followed by Mars going into your 11th house of friends, network, colleagues, the people that you share your space with, the people that you dedicate your time to. So if you do a lot of like volunteer work, so humanitarianism, your coworkers, that's going to be 11th house. Mars is going to do a very pivotal shakeup in this 11th house following a new moon in your 8th. You can also see shakeups at work. Does that mean that you're going to get laid off and lose your job? Not necessarily. Venus is in the 10th. Mars going into the 11th can also signify very pivotal moments and social moments that help you overcome fear. Now, for some of you Libra risings, this weekend and next week, so the days following the new moon, there's going to be more social interactions and more social possibilities that are going to come through. Some of you, those social possibilities is going to be going to a kid's birthday party. Pluto's in your 5th. You're going to a party that you don't really want to go to because Pluto's retrograde in your 5th. But once you go there, you connect with somebody. You connect with a friend, you connect with a colleague, you connect with somebody that's got another opportunity coming through with that new moon in your 8th. But there's a new option and another opportunity. Now I'm going to be full devil's advocate with you Libra risings and your indecisiveness. Let me be clear about something. The T-square between your 5th, 8th, and 11th, this can also be a fair energy. And I've seen that happen, not necessarily Libra risings. I've seen that happen so many times before with a 5th, 11th, 8th T-square, where one person thinks they're entering a relationship and the other one is committing adultery or they're hooking up in secret and nobody quite knows it. Don't do that. Don't go to a kid's party and hook up with the dad of one of your kids' friends. Trust me on this. You don't want to do that. Hear me out loud and clear as I'm saying this part. Do not use this energy to get swept up into and start an affair. Period. End of story. Because it will be very hurtful to your kids, Pluto in the 5th, and very hurtful with your friend groups, Mars in the 11th. The same thing will get repeated when Venus goes into your 11th, but I'm planting the seed now. Some of you Libra risings are not going to like that. I understand it. But for you to deal with certain things tied to your luck, tied to kids, tied to friends and their kids, tied to secrets, because this is the 8th house new moon, the topical layer is that there's opportunities through social events and financial opportunities and advances in your career. The flip side of that, the mirror side, the shadow side, is this can also be a transit that instigate affairs. Don't do that. You don't need that karma. Nobody wants that karma. Just trust me. Don't do that. Okay. Moving along for Scorpio and Scorpio risings, this is a new moon in your 7th house. Partnerships, commitments, legal obligations. Okay? For some people, this is going to be contracts. For others, this is going to be a partnership level commitment, whether it's a romantic partnership or a business partnership, that part doesn't matter. There's going to be some level of commitment that immediately starts to deal with the 8th house. It's going to start to deal with debts. It's going to start to deal with shared assets and shared finances. Mars is your chart ruler. Pluto is your chart ruler. Babies, this is us. We are making a commitment. We are making a promise. We are connecting to somebody, Jupiter in your 7th, new moon in your 7th. That's going to be a pivotal change in the future. For some of you, a chaotic, disruptive change into the future that is going to then allow for an area of fear or an area of transformation to be overcome or completed. In a mundane sense, this is making a commitment to a contractor for them to come in and finish doing a renovation on your house. I am projecting on this one because I'm anticipating that I'm going to hear back from my contractor finally to finish siding on the outside of my house. I don't have a clone, so I need help. For others, this is something different. Jupiter in the 7th for Scorpio risings, Jupiter can be husband energy. It can be spouse energy. It can be long-term commitments. And considering Saturn is in Jupiter's sign, Saturn is in the 5th house, there are some very long-term commitment energies that can be tied to this for Scorpio risings. For some of you, this is going to be a long-term business partnership. For others, this is going to be huge opportunities and commitments in regards to career and where you're going for the future. For others, this is just going to be hiring a contractor to finish the transformation on your house. This is going to be accepting an offer so that way you can sell your house. So that way you can get this part off of your plate and be able to go back and focus on the new place. And that's going to be more of what that Venus retrograde will be like later on. For others, this is going to be a disruption between parents. Mars in the 10th, opposite Pluto in the 4th. This can be a higher up or a higher authority telling you something you don't want to hear about your mom. What you don't want to hear about a family member. What you don't want to hear about roots or ancestry. This can either be very pivotal disruption with Mars going into the 10th, or it can be very chaotic disruption with Mars going into the 10th. Understand, both are very applicable. All right. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius risings, this is a new moon in your 6th house. Pluto is in your 3rd. Mars is going into your 9th. So just like the Gemini risings, I'm going to start this off with you guys and just tell you from the beginning, no distracted driving this weekend. And if we have long distance travel, expect frustrations and expect delays. Just be aware of it. It's not an easy thing to deal with, but it's going to be very, very necessary. Jupiter is your chart ruler. Jupiter's now in your 6th house of health, how you care for yourself, how you care for other people. And we need to look at new acts of service and new acts in restoring faith. Venus rules your 6th house. Venus is going to later this year have a retrograde in your 9th. Mars is going into your 9th first. So we have to first have a very pivotal, disruptive moment tied to the church, tied to education, tied to bigger groups of people. And there's going to be an initial cut, a disruption. Some of you are going to be asked to leave an event, leave the school, leave the church, leave somewhere because whatever is going on in your personal life. The thing about Sagittarius rising, some of y'all have had a horrible time since last summer because that Mars retrograde was not just something hard for you to watch other people go through. It was not just something hard for your partner to deal with on his own. For many of you, this was damaging to your marriage and damaging to your relationship. And Mars going into the 9th is going to be like having to deal with the court systems and the lawyers and everything else in regards to the big picture of things. and feeling more and more of that separation. Jupiter's square to Mars is actually telling you to put your faith in this area, to make pivotal motions in this area, and to connect to this area. So whether that is connecting to a new way of learning something, finding a new teacher, finding a new guru, finding new steps in your path of faith or religion, all of them are going to be necessary, good, bad, or ugly, to overcome the fear and frustration and the pain that you feel from recent traumas and recent decisions that you've made. So many Sagittarius risings, you have had the sheet pulled out from underneath you. There has been so many things that were going on behind your back, and now you're just starting to feel the first little bit of closeout, and so many of you are still in a very dark place because you are still riding some of the energy from that 12th house full moon that we had at the beginning of the month. You're not going to start to feel the best parts of yourself again until we get closer to that Sagittarius full moon that's going to occur in a few weeks. These next 2 weeks are meant to help you build new parts of your routine, build new ways of caring for yourself, build new ways of caring for others, build new aspects in regards to the work, build new aspects in regards to how you do everything. And the more work you do, Jupiter is here. The more work you do, the bigger the return can be. Not only do you fear recent decisions, but after Pluto goes back into Capricorn, you're going to start to have fears tied to money. Do the work. Jupiter in your 6th has the ability to help you get over those fears. And for some of you, doing small acts of service will reward you like you did a year's acts of service. That's how bountiful Jupiter in this area can be. The more sacrifice you make, the bigger the return and the bigger the reward. The less you fight certain areas of life, the easier things will be later on. And I'm not saying don't fight battles that aren't worth fighting, because if it's worth fighting and in your heart it's worth fighting, then you need to fight that battle. Mars opposite Pluto will fight that battle. Jupiter is giving you support. It is telling you you can do these things and still have a career, and still be of service, and still have your faith intact. You can make hard decisions. You can face these new areas of life, and you can handle the tests that are going on in your family and in your home life. Saturn in that 4th house is putting all sorts of tests now in family. These tests to family follow that Mars retrograde that was in the 7th. There's a lot of weight. There's a lot of weight. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of testing. And you're going to have more things come to light whenever it comes to the partners that were deceptive, the ones that couldn't get their story straight, the ones that couldn't handle the energy of Mars in your 7th. Some of you are going to start to see that your significant others are going to have changes in their job and in their work, and it's going to benefit you guys financially. It's also going to benefit the way you care for yourself and the way you're caring for others. So anticipate that there can also be good that comes from this new moon and good that comes in the transits that follow. It will still have a necessary pivotal act of change, Mars opposite Pluto, but with Venus following behind in just a few weeks, you'll see the reward really quickly also. Okay. For Capricorns and Capricorn risings, this is a new moon in your 5th house. Love, luck, romance, happiness, joy, connections with children, connections with your friends from childhood. You have a whole new level of support here. Now, For Capricorn risings, I like this new moon. I like this new moon for a lot of reasons, but I like this new moon with the support of Jupiter in your fifth, because Saturn, your chart ruler, is in your third, and it's in Pisces, and it's in Jupiter's sign. And we're getting a whole new way of how we think about things. We're getting a whole new way of processing our emotions, and we're getting a whole new way of communicating things. Many of you are focusing literally on the way that you portray a message. We're looking at the idea of rebranding ourselves. We're looking at the idea of making major changes and shifts in career. If we haven't already been making them, we're about to start making them, because the South Node is going to be going into your 10th house. And the way that you saw your public image, the way that you saw career, they're all going to be changing. They're going to be changing because you're going to have very beneficial changes in regards to home life and family. This is meant to grow. For this to grow, we have to have the right commitments involved. Now, for Capricorn risings, again, this is a 5th house new moon. This is a new moon ruled by Venus. And where is Venus, my loves? In your 7th house of relationships and partnerships, the way that you connect with certain people, the commitments that we make. Many of you are going to either be connecting to new romantic partners or reconnecting with old ones, because that Mercury retrograde, it was in the 5th house too. Some of you have made reconnections and re-evaluations and are trying to re-establish a relationship with somebody that you let go of, because I know you guys, y'all pushed them away. Very seldom is the breakup somebody else to you. More often, y'all get scared and push people away because you don't necessarily like dealing with your emotions. Not publicly. You want things in a certain way. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, Mars is wrapping up its trip through your 7th house. So for many of you, you're going to be, ending a connection with a friend. Many of you, you're ending maybe a connection tied to a partnership, or maybe a roommate situation, because Mars rules your 4th house of home life, and family. You're having somebody move out. You're having a change in family, and Mars is going to eliminate certain commitments. So leave the 7th and go into the 8th house. So for many of you, there's going to be a transformation in the way that you connect to shared assets and the way that you connect with money. Many of you are also going to have new financial opportunities come through Jupiter square Mars that is going to allow for you to finally overcome certain fears tied to your own money. Pluto in the 2nd. You have fears. You have things that you're working through. You're finally baby stepping some of your communication and some of the conversations to allow for new things to come through. For some of you, you're going to go meet with somebody to make a new business commitment and business connection, but you're going to find that that person that you're meeting, you have incredible chemistry with. And if it's not necessarily the person that you're meeting, it's going to be somebody that you're doing business with in the future. You're going to have a coworker or a client or a colleague that you just have amazing chemistry with. And if that becomes the case, that's whirlwind energy. And I'm planting the seed now that it's a whirlwind, not long-term commitment. If it's in that business category where we meet somebody romantically, that's not long-term commitment. It's going to be in other areas. It's going to be in areas more often for you guys connected to the past. It's going to be in areas regarding specifically communication. So if you're going into new marketing jobs or new brokerages or something like that, again, don't fall into any level of whirlwind energy. Go a little bit slower when it comes to that regard. Aside from everything else, Jupiter's in your 5th house. This is luck. Luck, 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 luck. The more that you work through things, Saturn in the 3rd, the more luck is on your side, Jupiter in your 5th. You are having a year of luck shifts, major luck shifts. That is amazing, considering some of y'all have years of PTSD that go all the way back to 2017 and 2018 transits. Many of you are still like recuperating some of the frustrations and the financial woes that you've dealt with these last few years of Saturn going through your second. We have the ability to change that and transform it and transmute it. Pluto does not have to represent fear. It can represent change. And for you to change and transform, you need the right financial opportunity. You need the right commitments. You need the right things in your favor to allow for this to happen. Now, I'm going to say this one more time, one more devil's advocate thing. If you find yourself suddenly very magnetically attracted to somebody that you just meet in the next few weeks, and especially if that person is connected to your work, don't do it. Trust me, you don't want to do that. Okay. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this is a new moon in your 4th house. Home, home life, family, roots, ancestry, mothers, motherhood. Many of you have made a lot of changes to like regain a certain amount of personal power, to take on new areas of life. You've adjusted the way you saw parts of your career, and you've taken on new avenues and new ways of making money. And this has taken up so much of your energy and so much of your power. Many of you are realizing that there has been disruptions to your routine, even if you didn't know it at the time. Some of you are just learning right now at the end of this energy that there's been disruptions in the routine. What are those disruptions tied to? Well, for many of you, it's tied to your family. And for you to get certain things right with your family, that means we're going to have to alter part of the routine and part of the focus. And we need to put more family incorporations into that routine. Now, I'm saying that because this is a new moon in your 4th house of home, home life, and family, but the ruler of your 4th house is Venus in your 6th. Now, some of you might be having to deal with health issues tied to a family member in your home, specifically a feminine family member. We have Venus, we have a new moon in Venus' sign. Be aware of that energy. Be aware of things going on with your own mother, with the matriarchal feminine figures within your family. For you married men Aquarius risings, be aware of things going on with your wife and where things are going at with her. Some people are having to deal with the disruptions in your routine have left your kids to go run amok. For some of you, you're starting to see that the disruption in the routine is not necessarily your disruption, but it's been the disruption of somebody else in the household, somebody else being at home all the time, somebody else being there, and they're going to need to start getting a new mindset. They're going to start to look for new ambitions. They're going to start to look for new ways of doing things. When Mars goes into your 7th, opposes Pluto, and squares Jupiter, you're going to most likely see the disruption with another, with somebody else, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a romantic partner. Many of the Aquarius risings, some of you are going to have to take a step back from your recent treks of obtaining new personal power. You're going to have to backstep it just a little bit, not to completely get rid of it. That's yours. But because you're going to need to be a little bit more sacrificial to help another over these next few months, and then you can kind of step back into that area of life and step back into that area of personal power. But Mars's opposition to Pluto in your 1st can mean some very disruptive arguments this weekend. It can mean some very disruptive energies tied to family, tied to siblings, tied to work and recent career decisions. There has been a lot of things going on these last few weeks. It has completely messed with your routine. Some of you, it's completely messed with your actual health. Some of it is the health of another is what's messing with your routine. Venus is going across the board and she's doing a bit of a band-aid fix behind Mars, but Mars is still doing the disruption. Mars is still doing what Mars wants to do. Mars in this opposition to Pluto can mean you fighting with another, you having to deal with somebody else's drama, you having to deal with somebody else's frustration. Some of you might just be dealing with somebody else projecting all of their crap on you because they feel like everything's going right for you. You've just been so busy working your things out and just doing whatever you want to do, and you're not paying attention to anything. And you're just going to get that onslaught and be like, tell me how you really feel. You don't want to know. You don't want to know how they really feel. And frankly, if they start to tell you, when you start to disconnect and disassociate, you're just going to make them even more mad. So don't ask them that question. Just let them go. Nod. Let them go until they cross a boundary, and you know what boundary that is for you. And then it's not going to be as fun. Okay. For Pisces and for Pisces rising, I have been saying for months now, you are feeling the weight, you are feeling heaviness, you are feeling certain things sink in. And this new moon in your third house is meant to bring on new types of communication. Jupiter, one of your chart rulers, is now in the third house. There are certain things that you now will suddenly have the ability to talk about. What are you talking about? Recent traumas, recent fears, recent triggers, the things that you knew were coming in some ways, but just didn't want to, believe. You had an ostrich situation. Some of you head in the hole. If my head is in this hole, that means my whole body is hidden. That's not how that works, but some of y'all have been an ostrich. And you had your head buried in a hole, and the thing is that hole started to fill in. You started to lose the ability to breathe, and you started to feel more and more heavy, and it got dark outside, and the darker it got outside, that means the darker it got inside. Saturn in the first. I've said this before, Saturn is adding a whole new weight to your person, to your identity, to your body, to your ego. And for many of you, the stress and the strain has impacted your home life, or it comes from things that have happened in your home life. And it has impacted the way that you see your relationship with children or with loved ones. And it's a lot. There's a lot of weight right now. You have the ability to break out of the fog with this new moon. You have the ability to take on new levels of communication to overcome these areas of frustration, and understand that a big part of the next few months for you guys is going to be about health, physical health, mental health, emotional health. You've had traumas. You've had past events. And even if some of those traumas and events were years ago, you have felt the triggers recently. Some of you, those triggers have just put you in a place that you're confused and you don't know how to move forward. The way you move forward is not by connecting to everyone in creation. It's more along the lines of you need to connect to one person, one group, on one topic, and work through that. Some of you need to step in and be the gurus helping other people pull themselves out of the funk, because you have already been in that funk before and you found a way to pull yourself out. The thing about trauma is not everybody has the ability to pull themselves out. And if they did, we wouldn't have some of the issues that we have in regards to mental health. People need help and people need assistance. For some Pisces risings, you have to talk to those people for help. And who are you talking to? You are talking to your siblings, Jupiter in the third. You are talking to your neighbors, Jupiter in the third. You are going to group therapies, Jupiter in the third. But those therapies are specific to that area. That guru, that therapist, that counselor, they're specific to you and your events and your trauma. Your sibling is your sibling. I don't have to explain that one. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm the oldest of 16. I got a bunch. Throw a dart. You never know which one's going to call. I don't ever pay attention to third house transits like that because I am the oldest of 16 kids. You can throw a dart at the board and even the dart will be wrong. Like, it's just a lot. So for some of you, it is reaching out to that sibling or one of the 16, if you're like me. For some of you, this is going to group therapy. It's sitting down with a neighbor, sitting down with somebody and talking things out and starting to take new steps and new efforts in regards to your health. That recent eclipse was a 9th house eclipse. There was a lesson involved. There was a connection and message from your higher self, from your source, from creator, from the universe, from God, from the little man in the sky, from the aliens, whoever you worship, whoever you talk to. There was a push from that area of the universe telling you, do you feel this pressure? Do you want to feel more of it? I can push harder, or you can start doing the work. And we've had a few weeks now of feeling that pressure. And you're either getting to the point that you're going to break, or you're going to start to connect, and you're going to start to talk, and you're going to start to communicate. Communication is so key for you right now. Work through the triggers, work through the recent trauma, and understand that the weight of Saturn does not have to always feel like weight. The other part of Saturn in your first can also be empowering. You can take Saturn's energy and roll with it. Or you can try to hide from Saturn's energy and you can feel it crush parts of you inside and out. I know this because I have natally Saturn in the first, and I have had my Saturn return, and it's not fun. It's not fun. Saturn in the first is not a fun energy. You can make it worthwhile. You can take control of situations, and you can take back your personal power. But to do that, it's going to require a certain amount of communication and a certain amount of work in regards to how you care for yourself and how you care for other people. And for many Pisces risings, the way you care for other people is what's going to give you a lot of purpose. And many of you are going to find new purpose in these next 4 to 6 months. But it starts with a conversation. It starts with an idea, and it starts with finally communicating this area that has been so triggering and has carried so much weight and so much fear. Okay. All right. All in all, I do love this new moon. I love this new moon because I love the presence of Jupiter there. But I look at that interaction of what Mars is doing with this opposition to Pluto, and I'm looking at, for some people, this is very supported action to finish something. For some people, this is feeding the fuel or the funding or the fire, like Mars needs help with fire, but feeding the fire to squash something, to complete something, to overcome a whole other area. We need the assistance. We need the supported actions that Jupiter and Mars are going to represent. There is a lot of excitement in this new moon and in the transits that immediately follow. But for some people, that's not going to be excitement in the yay sense. It's going to be excitement in the what the fuck was that sense. And it all kind of comes down to, again, where it's at in your chart. what we need to work through, what we need to communicate with, where we need the support, how we need to be supported, what the support means for us, and what Jupiter in Taurus is going to mean for us. I said it before, Jupiter's first little bit into Taurus, we didn't really feel it. With that square to Pluto, we should have felt more than what we did. But Pluto was going in a different direction. That's why we didn't feel it. It's like a cartoon. This way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. That's what it felt like. When Mars enters the mix, after this new moon, when Mars goes into Leo and hits that opposition to Pluto, oh, we're going to feel it. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we are going to feel Jupiter and Mars. We're going to feel the way their energies are feeding through one another and taking care of whatever Pluto is representing for you. For some of you, Pluto is representing an area of fear. For some of you, Pluto is representing an area of personal power, of transformation, of doing something new, of taking things in a new direction. For some of you, it is overcoming the past and overcoming trauma and overcoming every little trigger that has been coming through. But no matter what, the pivotal actions of Mars, the Denozo slap in the head from Mars, that's the way I'm going to say it, because if I say anything else, YouTube's not going to like it. So I'm just saying it that way. But remember, Mars is the god of war, and Mars is always armed. Always. So he can either shake your hand or he can cut it off. Mars. Be aware of that. Pivotal moments, pivotal action, necessary moments in time. There is a shift, there is an adjustment in this energy. And for many of us, it's going to be a very swift moving action. For many of us, it's going to feel almost blindsiding. For some of us, we're going to be feeling like we're forced to talk and forced to make a decision and forced to go somewhere. And that being forced is going to have corrective action later on. And it won't stick. But it all comes down to the first moments. Mars is making space. No matter how we look at it, Mars is clearing the path and making space and making a trail for Venus to go into Leo and to do her retrograde and have her whole song and dance in this area of the sky. Mars is making way for her. He's making space. He's cutting people off. He's cutting people out. He's shifting the view of how we've viewed certain people. And that Mercury retrograde not only showed us the different view, but it completely made us change our mind. We started April thinking that everything was going to go one way and we were going to do business with certain people. We were going to be committed to certain people. We were going to have actions that we were doing with certain people. And then we got to the end of that Mercury retrograde and we had a whole different way of looking at that person. The group has changed, the dynamic has changed, the tribe has changed, the job has changed, the plans have changed. And we're going into a timeline where we're weaving together things that were sparked in November of 2021 and the things that sparked in the manifestations that we set in the first set of eclipses in 2022, the ones that happened in late April and in mid-May, that new moon eclipse that happened in Taurus, coinciding with that full moon eclipse that happened in Scorpio. We set intentions in those areas. But for us to have the intentions that we set, certain things had to be adjusted. Certain lessons had to be taught. Certain things had to be made. We've done individual work. We've done very pivotal moments in our own personal work. And now we're seeing how that can progress forward. Now we're seeing how we can take what was shown to us in 2021 and take the intentions that we started to, and that the we started to try to manifest in the parts of 2022. We're taking the lessons of that Mars retrograde. We're taking the lessons of Saturn now in this first phase of Pisces. We're taking the lessons of Jupiter and Aries. We're taking all of these different moments and all of these different timelines, and we are weaving a new basket, a new place for our memories, a new place for where we keep things, a new way of holding on to things. We're weaving a new, intricate, solid foundation for things that are going to occur in the next phase, in the next cycles. We have to weave this timeline together, because when we go into the next phase and the next eclipse axis, I've said this before, I'm reminding everybody, when we go to the next eclipse axis, the dynamic change, the rulerships don't. Again, the dynamic changes, but not the rulerships. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, Taurus is ruled by Venus. The North Node is in Venus's sign, the South Node is in Mars's sign, but come July, the nodes change signs, Venus goes retrograde, and the rulerships change. The South Node will be in Libra. It'll be in Venus's sign. The South Node will go from a Mars sign to a Venus sign. The North Node will go from a Venusian sign to a Mars sign. And we will start to see a lot more actions take place in the area that Jupiter was just in. The next set of eclipses that we roll into following that Venus retrograde, they're both ruled by Venus. So we're going into Venusian territory, but to get to the full Venusian area of new things, of new areas of peace, of new beginnings and new trajectory, for us to get to that point, we have to finish some of the cutoff, and we have to finish some of the adjustments, and we have to pick the fabrics that we're using to weave. We have to be more selective in our sticks, especially if we're weaving wicker baskets. This strand's good. This one's not so much. This color don't match. I don't like it. We have to be picky. We have to be selective, because we want this to be good. We want this to be solid. We want this to be sound for not just a little while, for the long term, for the big picture plan, for the things that happen next. Okay. Hit me up with questions. Hit me up with concerns. I really hope that this does exactly what I want it to do, because if I have to record it again, I'll get over it. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for putting up with me whenever I'm growling and all that. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the shares, and thank you for the shout outs. I'm seeing more and more in those. I sincerely appreciate every single one of them. You guys don't understand. I try to be a very humble person. So when somebody says, "Oh, I totally just watched your episode," I'm like, that's still weird for me to hear. "Oh, I listen to you all the time." That's okay. Thank you. I don't know how to respond to that yet. I'm working on it. But I appreciate it. I love it. I appreciate the people that share. I appreciate the people that send me referrals. And I appreciate all of the respect that I get from everyone. I love and respect every single one of you. I appreciate every single one of you. You have no idea. Whenever I'm saying I am grateful for you, I am so grateful for you. You have no idea. I am grateful. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the love and support. I'll talk to everybody soon. Subscribe.